We've got a new book, loves. Bridge to Terabithia. If you have not taken your AR test yet on Ivan, then you need to go do that. And then you're going to have another new one to do it on. I'm hoping that all of you can get access to this movie after I've read it so we can do a compare contrast. It would be awesome if we were at school together, but I don't know if that's going to happen. So if you know about this book, I still want you to listen every single day to me reading. And here is a quick synopsis of it. 2 lives are bridged and nothing will be the same. Jess Aarons' greatest ambition is to be the fastest runner in the 5th grade. He's been practicing all summer and can't wait to see his classmates' faces when he beats them all. But on the first day of school, a new kid, a new girl, boldly crosses over to the boys' side of the playground and outruns everyone. That's not a very promising beginning for a friendship, but Jess and Leslie Burke become inseparable. It doesn't matter to Jess that Leslie dresses funny or that her family has a lot of money, but no TV. Leslie has imagination. Together, she and Jess create Terabithia, a magical kingdom in the woods where the 2 of them can reign as king and queen, and their imaginations set the only limits. Then one morning, a terrible tragedy occurs. Only when Jess is able to come to grips with this tragedy does he finally understand the strength and courage Leslie has given him. And our first chapter is called Jess Aarons Oliver Jr. Brum, 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 rippity, rippity, rippity. Good. His dad had the pickup going. He could get up now. Jess slid out of bed and into his overalls. He didn't worry about a shirt because once he began running, he would be hot as poppin' grease, even if the morning air was chill. Or shoes, because the bottoms of his feet were by now as tough as his worn-out sneakers. "Where are you going, Jess?" Maybelle lifted herself up sleepily from the double bed where she and Joyce Ann had slept. "Shh," he warned. The walls were thin. Mama would be mad as flies in a fruit jar if they woke her up this time of day. He patted Maybelle's hair and yanked the twisted sheet up to her small chin. "Just over the cow field," he whispered. Maybelle smiled and snuggled back down under the sheet. "You gonna run?" "Maybe." Of course he was going to run. He'd gotten up early every day all summer to run. He figured if he worked at it, and Lord had he worked, he could be the fastest runner in the 5th grade when school opened up. He had to be the fastest. Not one of the fastest, or next to the fastest, but the fastest, the very best. He tiptoed out of the house. The place was so rattly that it screeched whenever you put your foot down. But Jess had found that if you tiptoed, it gave only a low moan, and he could usually get outdoors without waking Mama or Ellie or Brenda or Joyce Ann. Maybelle was another matter. She was going on 7, and she worshipped him, which was okay sometimes. When you were the only boy smashed between 4 sisters, and the older 2 had despised you ever since you stopped letting them dress you up and wheel you around in their rusty old doll carriage, and the littlest one cried if you looked at her cross-eyed, it was nice to have somebody who worshipped you, even if it got unhandy sometimes. He began to trot across the yard. His breath was coming out in little puffs. It was cold for August, but it was early yet. By noontime, when his mom would have him out working, it would be hot enough. Miss Bessie stared at him sleepily as he climbed across the scrap heap, over the fence, and into the cow field. "Moo," she said, looking for all the world like another Maybelle with her big, brown, droopy eyes. "Hey, Miss Bessie," Jay said soothingly, "just go on back to sleep." Miss Bessie strolled over to a greenish patch. Most of the field was brown and dry, and yanked up a mouthful. "Atta girl, just eat your breakfast. Don't pay me no mind." He always started at the northwest corner of the field, crouched over like the runners he had seen on Wild World of Sports. "Bang!" he said, and took off flying around the cow field. Miss Bessie strolled toward the center, still following him with her droopy eyes, chewing slowly. She didn't look very smart, even for a cow, but she was plenty bright enough to get out of Jess's way. And here's Jess in his position, getting ready to go. His straw-colored hair flapped hard against his forehead, and his arms and legs flew out every which way. He had never learned to run properly, but he was long-legged for a 10-year-old, and no one had more grit than he did. Lark Creek Elementary was short on everything, especially athletic equipment, so all the balls went to the upper grades at recess time after lunch. Even if a fifth grader started out the period with a ball, it was sure to be in the hands of a sixth or seventh grader before the hour was half over. The older boys always took the dry center of the upper field for their ball games, while the girls claimed the small top section for hopscotch and jump rope and hanging around talking. So the lower grade boys had started this running thing. They would all line up on the far side of the lower field where it was either muddy or deep, crusty ruts. Earl Watson, who was no good at running but had a big mouth, would yell, "Bang!" and they'd race to a line that they'd towed across at the other end. One time last year, Jess had won. Not just the first heat, but the whole shebang. But only once. But it had put into his mouth a taste for winning. Ever since he'd been in first grade, he'd been that crazy little kid that draws all the time. But one day, April the 22nd, a drizzly Monday it had been, he'd ran ahead of them all, the red mud slooching up through the holes in the bottoms of his sneakers. So you should be thinking about kind of some of the things that we've heard. He had already talked about his run-down sneakers, and now he's talking about his sneakers with holes in them. So you can kind of start to imagine maybe what his family, if they have a lot of money, we can infer that they probably don't, or he would probably have shoes that fit and didn't have holes in them. Where are we? For the rest of that day and until after lunch on the next, he had been the fastest kid in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades. And he was only a 4th grader. On Tuesday, Wayne Pettis had won again as usual. But this year, Wayne Pettis would be in the 6th grade. He'd play football until Christmas and baseball until June with the rest of the big guys. Anybody had a chance to be the fastest runner. And by Miss Bessie, this year was going to be Jess Oliver Aarons Jr. Jess pumped his arms harder and bent his head for the distant fence. He could hear the 3rd grade boys screaming him on. They would follow him around like a country music star, and Maybelle would pop her buttons. Her brother, the fastest and the best. They ought to give the rest of the 1st grade something to chew their cuds on. Even his dad would be proud. Jess rounded the corner. He couldn't keep going quite so fast, but he continued running for a while. It would build him up. Maybelle would tell Daddy, so it wouldn't look as though he, Jess, was a bragger. Maybe Dad would be so proud he'd forget about how tired he was from his long drive back and forth to Washington and the digging and hauling all day. He'd get right down on the floor and wrestle the way he used to. Old Dad would be surprised at how strong he'd gotten in the last couple of years. His body was begging him to quit, but Jess pushed it on. He had to let that puny chest of his know who was boss. "Jess!" It was Maybelle yelling from the other side of the scrap heap. "Mama says you gotta come in and eat now. Leave the milk until later." Oh, crud. He'd run too long. Now everyone would know he'd been out and start in on him. "Yeah, okay." He turned, still running, and headed for the scrap heap. Without breaking his rhythm, he climbed over the fence, scrambled across the scrap heap, thumped Maybelle right on her head. "Ow!" and trotted onto the house. "Well, look at the big Olympic star," said Ellie, banging 2 cups on the table so that the strong black coffee sloshed out, "sweating like a knock-kneed mule." Jess pushed his damp hair out of his face and plunked down on the wooden bench. He dumped 2 spoonfuls of sugar into his cup and slurped to keep the hot coffee from scalding his mouth. "Oh, Mama, he stinks!" Brenda pinched her nose with her pinky crooked delicately. "Make him wash!" "Get over here to the sink and wash yourself," his mother said without raising her eye from the stove. "And step on it. These grits are scorching the bottom of the pot already." "Mama, not again," Brenda whined. Lord, he was tired. There wasn't a muscle in his body that didn't ache. "You heard what Mama said," Ellie yelled at his back. "I can't stand it, Mama," Brenda again. "Make him get his smelly self off this bench." Jess put his cheek down on the bare wood of the tabletop. "Jessie!" His mother was looking now. "And put on a shirt." "Yes'm." He dragged himself to the sink. The water he flipped on his face and up his arms pricked like ice. His hot skin crawled under the cold drops. Maybelle was standing in the kitchen door watching him. "Get me a shirt, Maybelle." She looked as if her mouth was set to say no, but instead she said, "You shouldn't oughta beat me on my head," and went off obediently to fetch his t-shirt. Good old Maybelle. Joyce Ann would have been screaming it from the little tap. 4-year-olds were a pure pain. I got plenty of chores needs doing around here this morning, his mother announced as they were finishing their grits and red gravy. His mother was from Georgia and still cooked like it. Oh, Mama! Ellie and Brenda squawked in concert. Those girls could get out of work faster than grasshoppers could get through their fingers. Mama, you promised me and Brenda we could go to Millsburg for school shopping. You ain't got no money for school shopping. Mama, we're just gonna look around. Lord, he wished Brenda would stop whining so much. Christmas, you don't want us to have no fun at all. Any fun, Ellie corrected her primly. Oh, shut up. Ellie ignored her. Miss Timmons is coming by to pick us up. I told Lolly Sunday you said it was okay. I'd feel dumb calling her and saying you changed your mind. Oh, all right, but I ain't giving you any money. I know, Mama. We'll just take the $5 that Daddy promised us. No more than that. And I'm going to stop right there. Poor Jess with those sisters. Woo! This is going to be a good one, you guys. I'll read more later.